Hi guys, how's it going? You're watching Gears and Gasoline and I am Ben. We are sitting here in my Evo 9 and right now this car is driving like trash. Yeah, driving real bad. It's funny how one lacking component can make the whole package of a good car just feel awful. And right now that lacking component is definitely my suspension. For a while I was really committed to staying on stock suspension, just trying to see how fast I could go at the track on all stock suspension. Then I did lowering springs and the ride is just kind of falling apart. I think that the suspension is too compressed and my struts are starting to blow out. My ride height's a little bit uneven and things are just not looking great. So I could do two things. I could replace my suspension that I have right now with more OEM suspension, or I can upgrade. So I gave Fortune Auto a call, and it's a fantastic suspension company located right here in Virginia, just a couple hours away from us. They said that they had something for the Evo. So a couple days ago, I went up there, spoke to Matt, who's a suspension genius, and went home with something fresh for the Evo.
Fortune's located right outside of Richmond, Virginia, in a little town called Powhatan, the slice of heaven. We're building everything in-house. We've been racing as long as we've been building coilovers. We want fast cars, we like driving cars, you know, you have that emotion in there, and we've just taken it into how can we make this our job. I'm Matt Purvis, I'm the production manager here at Fortune Auto. So Ben is here today picking up coilovers for his Evo. He got to experience the process of building and seeing what all goes into that. We have our 500 series shock, we have our 510 series shock, and we have our Dreadnought Pro series shock, which is a double adjustable or triple adjustable shock. So Ben's leaving with Generation 6, our latest 510 series shock. It's a technical process, building the 510. Generally, you start with setting the jet and the jet seat inside the shaft and making sure that we have the same amount of adjustments per both fronts, both rears.
So what does this do basically? What does the jet do?
So this is what adjusts the damper on the shock. So now that you have it set, now you can adjust to 24 clicks to set it.
From there, it's going to come to a piston and shims, and we have a pretty good idea, depending on what the application is and what we're doing with it, as far as where to start on the valving.
It more or less adds more weight or it adds less weight to the shock for our valving to match. So
we try and keep all of our tolerances pretty tight, usually within 1 to 3%. Assembling the shaft with the piston and the bump stop and all the limiters that needs then goes into the shock body, which is going to have a divider piston that separates the oil cavity where the shock shaft and piston are actually suspended in, and the nitrogen chamber, which actually pressurizes the whole system. Once all that's sealed up and has all been measured out, it's dyno time. Seeing where the shock is performing at, the health of the shock. We run two tests. We run a CVP, which is a constant velocity plot, and that really tells us how the shock is reacting in its stroke. And it's more of a checkup or a health graph that tells us how much hysteresis is in there, how much turbulence is being created as fluid's being moved through the piston and shims. We also do another test that's called a PVP, and it's a point velocity plot, and that tells us what the shock force values are actually making through a stroke or through the speed of travel. So we're able there to fine tune the amount of force a shock is making at, let's say, an inch per second of wheel travel versus 7 inches per second. Low vehicle speed or low wheel speed being at the 1 inch to 3 inch per second, and then your mid-range being from like 4 to 6, and then like high speed being 6 through 10. These are all values that you'll probably see on our graphs where they have that hard knee at 1 inch per second. That is what we're using to say this is how much this shock is going to make at this adjustment. So we can go through and say at full soft it makes this kind of force. At full hard, it makes this kind of force. At 12 clicks, it makes this kind of force. And it's really, the PVP is a roadmap for what that shock is doing per each set. Those guys have been building shocks for a long time, and you know, they know that I need this much fluid and this much shim, and the, you know, how everything works, and sometimes it's not always right. Like today, when Trey was building Ben's shocks, you know, they didn't come out perfectly matched right off the bat, which sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. The dyno is there to tell us that what we're doing is right or what we're doing is wrong. Basically, you find that, hey, these force values are a little different, manipulate the shock that's not right, and or manipulate both of them to where we get the product that's right. So once the shocks have been built, dynoed, and matched, there it's just as simple as putting on all the external pieces, the spring perches, bump stops, dust boots, springs. So on Ben's set, he went with Swift springs, which is an awesome upgrade. A 7-inch 9K Swift spring is going to weigh less than a 7-inch 9K standard steel spring. They react faster, and the ride quality. It's interesting that a higher performing, you know, racier part, it actually rides a little better as well. The radial bearings, pillow ball mounts, or top hat camber plate, and lower mount, and that's pretty much what makes it up.
So yeah, it was a super successful trip to Fortune Auto. The suspension is obviously not on the car yet because I've spent this whole week just editing that video. But next week, I'm planning on putting the suspension on. I'm gonna film that process obviously and have a video out in a little while. So can't wait to see how the 510s feel on the car. It's a very track-oriented suspension, but the Swift Spring should help, you know, a little bit with the drivability on the streets. And with those camber plates, I should be able to run actually decent camber for the track. So very, very excited. Yeah, so thanks for watching and have a great day.